Expressway.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss how to effectively tame the Apapa traffic gridlock in Lagos.
A joint task force inaugurated by the Lagos State government to sanitize the ever-congested Apapa-Oshodi Expressway and other routes by articulated vehicles is said to be yielding positive results, as over 2,000 containerized vehicles and trucks have been removed. The trucks are believed to have been driven to 7 tanker farms.
Well, Kieran, that's right. It appears that what appeared impossible is being achieved in the meantime. However, experience has often shown that when the trucks are removed in the daytime, the drivers often then return trucks to block the roads later on at night. But the question to ask is, how can the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway traffic gridlock be resolved? We hear that government is also set to establish a mobile court to prosecute recalcitrant drivers.
Well, yes, Kingsley, that's right. And that will no doubt sanitize the gridlock. Don't forget the joint task force comprising of 2,271 personnel drawn from the Nigerian Police Force, Lagos State Traffic Management Authority, LASMA, Nigerian Airports Authority, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Federal Road Safety Corps, the Army, the Air Force and the Navy. This has freed the service lane of trucks and trailers backed by the 72-hour order to restore sanity on Apapa Expressway and environs by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Though many say similar orders have been given in the past and nothing happened.
That's right, Kirian. We saw what happened some years ago when the federal government and then the Lagos State governor also mobilized to clear the traffic menace stretching right from Apapa Wharf straight on to parts of the Apapa-Oshodi Expressway right up to Iyanon Solo, as it is called. Now, for those who are familiar with Lagos or those who are not very familiar with Lagos, the expressway to which we are referring has 2 of the country's major ports. In fact, they're the 2 busiest ports in the country. That's to say the Apapa port as well as the Tin Can Island port. So these are the 2 major ports. You have a number of military installations also in that area. The Navy, they have a base in that location, as well as the Army with a number of facilities in that location as well. A number of businesses and industrial concerns are also located along the arterial way. And by the way, Kirian, you have at least 3 or 4 national newspapers that are on that axis. Smack in the middle of it on Creek Road is This Day newspaper. And then around Kirikiri itself, you have Vanguard and the Sun. And in Kirikiri, you have a maximum security prison. And then further down, just before Oshodi, you have the Guardian newspaper.
So it's indeed a congested area.
It is. It's become congested over the past 10 years or so. And the efforts, to clear the traffic on a regular basis, those efforts have never been successful until what we're talking about just what happened on the weekend when the Vice President issued a 72-hour directive for the trucks and their drivers to get out of the way.
And for that, I think sanity is gradually returning to the place, Kingsley. So now let us not forget in a hurry that only last month, precisely 29th June, about 60 cars were burned and at least 10 people died in the inferno on Otedola Bridge due to the menacing and the recalcitrant attitude of trailer and tanker drivers and other owners as well. Well, there appears to be a new shift by the Buhari administration to sanitize all sectors of the economy, especially the transport sector.
Kirian, that's right. But as it may not come as a surprise, to many, as we are hearing there are reports of resistance as well as complaints by some stakeholders, just as indeed proponents of the clearance of the traffic menace are indicating that it will facilitate, of course, the economic activities along that very important corridor, as well as promote productivity, as several man-hours are currently lost in the traffic gridlock on a daily basis, weekends inclusive.
Yes, and so this morning our conversation will center on taming the Apapa traffic gridlock. And of course, what are the hidden issues involved in that? We'll bring them on the table Many thanks to you for joining us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian in also welcoming you to the program, in the course of which we shall have our regular companion segments, which will include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment. All of that, of course, will be part of the package. In the meantime, here is the highlights of the morning news with our colleague Musbah Udan-Wahab. Hi, Musbah.
Hello, Kingsley and Kieran. Good morning, and here are the latest news this morning. In furtherance of his strategic engagement and wide consultations with critical stakeholders of the governing APC ahead of the 2019 elections, President Buhari Monday morning held talks with the former Kano State Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo quotes Senator Kwankwaso describing his audience with the Nigerian leader as fruitful.
My former colleagues, governors, of course, came to me and we had some discussions with them. And now we had an opportunity to see President, and we had some useful discussions. That's all.
So you are remaining in the APC?
No, let's wait and see. A lot has to be done, really, to decide on what to do.
The National Assembly and managers of Nigeria's capital markets are intensifying efforts to ensure that the equity markets contribute significantly to the nation's annual budget. Of the second edition of the Capital Market Stakeholders Forum in Abuja, participants were unanimous that capital markets should be a major driver of Nigeria's economy.
We need a robust capital market because when funds, long-term funds, flow into the capital market, then new businesses will be created.
I wish to reiterate the need for continued collaboration between the organized private sector and relevant committees of the National Assembly in our resolve to ensure meaningful national growth and development.
The House of Representatives had a committee investigating alleged constitutional breeder bordering on financial mismanagement amounting to $30 billion of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company has expressed disappointment over certain inconsistencies in the running of the company. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that this was during an investigative hearing on the matter.
We're investigating the impunity associated with Niger Delta and all those infractions. Like I said the last time, we are not investigating things that will be. We're investigating from inception, things that have been.
Still, at the National Assembly, where mixed reactions are trailing the bill to repeal the Nigerian Press Council Act of 1992 to enact the Nigerian Press Council of 2018. This was at a public hearing by the Senate Committee on Information and National Orientation.
The constitution of the council, the composition of the council, the appointment of the executive secretary.
The 23 members, to my mind, is very large. It should be reduced.
This bill should not have been drafted in the first place, seeking to oust the Supreme Court from something very, very significant.
I have called for all the judgments at the trial court and the appellate court. I've gone through them, all the issues raised there. I read them yesterday and today before coming here, and I satisfied myself that I can come here.
Now, away from the National Assembly, as the first sub-national state to join the Open Government Partnership, Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai was among speakers on using ICT in advancing civil participation. Franca Uzoma Olua reports that the Eyes and Ears project made the state to stand out at the just concluded Global Summit in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Expand, equip, and staff 255 health centers within 3 years. We have done about 200 now. We are not yet there, but we've seen significant reductions from 82% not going to hospital to have their babies, we are now down to 48% because of tools like this.
Now, on a rather sad note, 5 persons, including a former Katsina State Commissioner for Education, Professor Halima Sadiya Idris, have been confirmed killed following Sunday evening's attack by gunmen on travelers along Abuja-Kaduna Highway. Kaduna State Commissioner of Police, Austin Iwar, says the incident occurred at Gidan Bosa village near Kateri.
Analyzing the situation to determine whether it is robbery, or it is kidnap, or it is bandits that just attack people, those are attacking people on the highway and killing them.
And following the arrest of 22 Boko Haram terrorists, Borno State Police commanders apprehended 2 more suspected members of a terrorist group in Ngazai local government area of the state. The police commissioner confirmed the arrest in a press briefing at the command's headquarters in Maiduguri, the state capital.
7 rifles were recovered from the insurgents. And on interrogation, the suspect confessed that they came all the way from Sambisa Forest on a mission to Russell House at the behest of their commander.
Having witnessed 2 sides of a coin, the people of Ekiti State recently decided and Kayode Fayemi emerged as governor-elect of the state. This decision has set the governor-elect on a path as he visited Secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, to seek support for the people of Ekiti State.
Ekiti has the highest enrollment of school pupils in Nigeria. When I was governor, 98% enrollment. Today, Ekiti has the lowest enrollment in the whole of the Southwest because parents cannot afford to send their children to school because they're not even earning salaries. They're owed 6 months. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that this is excruciating poverty and pain that our people are going through. And that's what we have to put a stop to and restart the developmental clock that has been violently arrested in Ekiti in the last 4 years.
That was the governor-elect of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi. And that's the news this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll now continue with Kirian and Kingsley after this break.
We are continuing this morning's broadcast of Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and business is next. Inflation falls 17th consecutive times to 11.23% year-on-year in June 2018. Plus, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers pledges to work with Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) on capital market studies. Details on our business news with Chimobi Water and Energy.
Welcome to the business news, and we begin with the headline inflation, which has fallen the 17th consecutive time. According to the Consumer Price Index, the data reveals that the inflation rate fell to about 11.23% year-on-year in June when compared to 11.61% in May 2018, while food inflation dropped to 12.98% from 13.45%, and core stood at 10.4% from 10.7%. Now, the headline month-on-month inflation, however, rose 1.24% in June from 1.09% in May. The urban inflation rate also eased by 11.68% year-on-year in June from 12.08% recorded in May 2018, while the rural inflation rate also eased 10.83% in June from 11.20% in May 2018. And to other stories, the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers (CIS) has pledged to work with the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) in its desire to infuse capital market studies into the curriculum of schools in the country. Now, already, the apex regulator of the Nigerian capital market is developing a curriculum on capital market studies as part of the financial literacy program, which is geared towards boosting investment education. President of CIS, Mr. Dakbo Adekoje, made the pledge during a meeting between CIS and management of SEC in Abuja. Adekoje commended the SEC on its investor education initiative and assured that the institute was willing to support any program that would help deepen the market. In her remarks, Acting Director General of SEC, Ms. Mary Uduk, said the Commission is open to any collaborative efforts that would increase financial literacy among Nigerians. The 10-year Capital Market Master Plan requires SEC to inculcate the culture of financial literacy and specifically to introduce capital market studies into curriculum at all levels of education to encourage CMS as a degree program in the tertiary institutions. Now let's take a look at trading on the floor of the capital market. And that ends the business news at this time. I'm Chimobi Walter and many thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Chimobi Walter Naji, for the business stories on Good Morning Nigeria today. Let's now take a look at the front pages of some of today's newspapers in our review session.
And the master of this newspaper review session is here with us, Bayo Atoyebi. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kirian. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, good to see you. We have some 6 papers. One of them, of course, we're taking the editorial from. Let's begin by looking at the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper. New Telegraph, above the nameplate, story on the economy there, it says NBS, that's the National Bureau of Statistics. Nigeria's inflation slows to lowest in 30 months. Details of that story can be found on page 30. Inflation now 11.23%. Banks contract staff sign anti-money laundering oath. That's the other headline. But the lead story is on politics, along, of course, with the other window of 4 headlines just below the nameplate. Says PDP malls change of name, expels Kashamu and others. Page 5. 4 ex-INEC officials forfeit 387 million naira to the federal government. 5,000 Nigerian doctors are in South Africa, and that's according to the envoy. Details on page 2. And stakeholders to Senate throw out press council bill. That's on page 9. Now the lead story says with a kicker, Oshiomhole, ministers can't disrespect me like Buhari. With a rider vows to expel Ngige and Sirika from APC. Ngige is Labour Minister, Sirika is Minister of State Aviation. And then, of course, you have another rider there, which is an excerpt from the statement that the chairman of the APC made yesterday while addressing reporters at the presidential villa. Now, let's go to below the photograph on the front page. It says bank robbery. That's the kicker. Again, police summon Saraki with a rider, Senate President, fresh assault against me will fail. That's on page 36. And by the way, the Oshiomhole story is also lead for the Nigerian pilot, Kirian. I'm sure you have that. For the Nigerian pilot, it comes as follows. Oshiomhole spits fire. And with 4 riders to that, insists he's not losing sleep over RAPC faction, says none of them can deliver their word on a good day, calls them permanent political mercenaries, and boasts that he had defeated powerful godfathers.
All right. Now, let's move to the Tribune. Let me just continue from where you stopped with respect to the story on Oshiomhole, just below the photograph of the Nigerian Tribune, where he also says, Oshiomhole attacks Ngige others. If Buhari condones disrespect for his office, I will not condone same for the party. It's on page 47. But let's go to the lead story here on the Nigerian Tribune. Of a robbery, police invite Saraki again. And if you go over to the Daily Independent, The lead story there too is the same of a story of robbery. Police again summon Saraki, insists Senate President has case to answer. Now, returning to the Nigerian Tribune, let's take some of the headlines there. RAPC Chairman Galadima, that's below the nameplate. Son survived car accident, is on page 4. Fire guts Arabashola's office, that's on page 33. Katsina flood, 10 more corpses recovered, on page 35. And now, on the robbery story that inviting Saraki again, there are two writers to that story. Order him to report 8 a.m. today in Abuja, and police invitation, mere political game, says Saraki. And now on the columns of the Nigerian Tribune, towards the left, PDP expels Kashamu 3 orders. So set to change name, approves diffusion of RAPC to fold, held to tribunal over Ekiti poll. Page 4 has that story. Now below that, suicide bomber kills 8 in Borno State, on page 35. And on the other side, we have 75 of Unity Forum members returning to Oyo APC, says Ajimobi, as Governor Lawakala lawmakers meet to resolve crisis. It's on page 8. Oshu SSG resigns, emerges ADP governorship candidate. It's on page 4. I will declare party to join this week, or Tom, that's page 8. Now below that, 20-year-old suspect reveals, I cover up with hijab to kill rival cult members. That's on page 30. Let's bring in Bayo here.
Yes, the robbery incident has been dominated the papers, and while the police say they are inviting Dr. Bukora Saraki to appear at the Aguzape office 8 o'clock today to provide further clarification on his statement that he issued on June 8th, the Senate President says it is all a political game. Dr. Saraki said he has on good authority that the criminals are supposed to be arraigned in court today, Wednesday. The turn around to invite him is a ploy to stop the defection plan of some legislators from the All Progressive Congress. He says being detained is expected to be detained and on Tuesday, and this will stop the defection plans. He asserts that his position in the 2019 election is not personal and no concoction can deter him. The fresh assault, he says, will fail as he has nothing to do with the robbery. But the police are saying that one of the key suspects had provided information that the vehicle for which they use and other accessories were obtained through the chief of staff to the governor, and it was provided by him. They also said they were on his delegation to sympathize with the people of Offa. From all indications, they are set to go, and there are some issues to clarify as regards investigation. This is what has become a political game now between the Senate President and the police. They are no best of friends anyway, if we follow the incidences that have occurred for a long time. Inflation. Inflation is still on its downward trend. This is the 17th time inflation is being driven down. Presently, it has dropped to 11.23%. And if it continues like that, it is expected that in no due distant future, it will become a one-digit figure. We still have about 2.23% to go. But however, there are indications that urban inflation is by 11.68%. It was before 11.08%. The rural inflation, however, has dropped to 10.83%. It was 11.20%. As of June, inflation was highest in Rivers, Kebbi, and Adamawa. It was also lowest in 3 states, Kwara, Benue, and Plateau. But most often than not, the ordinary people say we have not seen the impact of the drop of inflation in the cost of goods and services in the markets. So let it trickle down. We want to see it on the ground.
All right, there are other stories to look at from the Daily Sun newspaper. An earpiece there beside the nameplates. It's one that Kirian read earlier from one of the titles. Bomb blast rocks Borno Mosque, 7 killed. That's on page 10. And the late stories on the robbery, which Bayo has already discussed. And then you also have the Oshomole threatening to expel Lungi and other ministers from APC. That story is there. NPO, that's the Nigerian Press Organization, at Senate public hearing, again opposes proposed media law, as well as the expulsion of Kashamu and 3 others from the PDP. That's on pages 6 and 38. Now, below the photograph you see there on the front page of the Daily Sun are some of the media chieftains and senators who were at the Senate hearing on the proposed repeal and reenactment of the Nigerian Press Council Act 1992. Below that is a story on the Reverend Father Mbaka. It's on again. Details of the story can be found on page 6.
All right, now let's go to the Daily Independent. Above the nameplate. DSS ejects Giwa from NFF Secretariat. With a rider, worried minister says court orders have not changed. Now, Apapa gridlock, Lagos suspends development of tank farms. That's on page 42. Now, below the nameplate, well, we've told you about the offer robbery incident, which Bayo has taken care of. And besides the photograph, we have Autumn, that's the governor of Benue State, ready to defect to PDP, meets Mark Soswam Gemade. With a rider, he doesn't need PDP aspirants' permission, says aide. Now, suicide bomber kills 7 in Borno Mosque. Gunmen kill ex-commissioner, soldier, policeman on Kaduna-Abuja highway, page 40. And then PDP constitutes committee to change name. With a rider, expels Kashamu, Shodibo, Cherokee, and Adebayo on page 40. All right. Oshomole says he would not lose sleep over PDP. That's on this title called Oshomole threatens to suspend Ngige from APC. Bayo.
Right, let's talk about this criminality. Unfortunately, criminality is returning to the Kaduna-Abuja highway again. A former commissioner in Katsina has been killed. An army officer and his daughter were also killed. The commissioner of police in Kaduna has identified that these were bandits that were killing people on the highway, but they are on top of the situation. Sadly, in Konduga, another suicide bomber has killed 7 at the mosque. Several persons were injured. The other sad story is a 20-year-old girl who ran from home in Abeokuta and was living in Lagos. He joined the Eye Confraternity. He was taught by one brother how to use a gun. And each time she went out with 2 boys to identify rival court members and shot the rival court member at point blank. She confessed she has killed 4, and each time she kills a rival court member, she gets paid 10,000. The police has arrested her, and the Commissioner of Police Lagos State says, parents, be careful who your children move out with.
Well, there are, well, at least 2 stories. The squabble over the leadership of the Nigerian Football Federation.
Yes.
It's Amaju Pinnick is back in the saddle, as it were, and then Kiwa has been ejected. As we indicated, these are issues pertaining to soccer jurisprudence, how FIFA statutes affect affiliate federations, as it were. Either at the continental level or at the national level. But there are legal issues.
But let me ask you this. I think there are special or specific courts, for the hearing of such cases, globally. I wonder why we are beginning to respect the normal civil court in Nigeria when it comes to football matters, knowing fully well that the statute you mentioned, the FIFA statute, does not have respect for that. And the FIFA hammers you. The moment you do that, they don't mince words, they just hammer you. We've suffered this in the past by suspensions and all of that.
It's a dilemma in the sense that FIFA has its own rules. And when it gives orders, you are supposed to abide by it. If you have disputes, go to the Sports Arbitration Tribunal.
That's the court of arbitration for sport.
Yes, for sports. However, you cannot ouster the jurisdiction or the authority of the courts to entertain cases before it. And if a case has been brought before a court of law in Nigeria and the highest court has given direction as regards that, those in authority must see that that order is obeyed. Apparently, the DSS is acting to ensure that the sanctity of the rule of law in Nigeria is sustained. But the dilemma now is that FIFA is saying unless it retains Pinnick as its chairman, if it persists, it will ban Nigeria. So it's a critical.
Yeah, let me ask this, with who has a legal background. Yes, the High Court has to entertain a case brought before it, but is it not possible for that same High Court to say, look, take this case to the right court. It's not possible to do that.
Well, you're talking about a court declining jurisdiction, to entertain a matter. And the issue is there is a grievance redress procedure that FIFA itself has stipulated. It turns out that some persons who are sometimes aggrieved bypass that grievance redress procedure and then seek succor, as it were, or seek relief from the normal course, depending, of course, on the particular issues that they are seeking, for which they are seeking relief. But if it turns out that there is a conflict, as it were, between your courts and the statutes of FIFA, as well as the decision of the Court of Arbitration for Sports, then, of course, FIFA will say, this is what the Court of Arbitration has decided, and this is what we'll do. FIFA will not compel you to obey that. But, of course, FIFA will say, if you do not abide by our rules, then you cannot participate in our events. FIFA is an international institution. It's an international NGO, if you like.
Why I ask this question is because we have had courts say we have no jurisdiction over this matter.
That's right.
And refer you to another court. So when that didn't happen in this matter.
It cannot refer. It just can advise the parties to
refer.
The other one, before you take the editorial, this is very serious. Bio, we've not had time to discuss it. If you recall, it was sometime last year or so that the police authorities succeeded in clearing the criminals who had laid siege to the Abuja-Kaduna expressway. I mean, there were frequent reports of robberies, kidnapping, and wanton killings. And here we are. It appears that the bandits are back.
They are regrouping.
Yeah, the bandits are back. So how do we? What I find very curious, Kirian, is because one of the reports, the husband of the late professor, who was a commissioner in Katsina, said, look, nobody flagged them down. There was no roadblock. There was nothing. They were driving by, and then the bandits just started shooting at them. Who are these?
Well, it's a big time question, because the police has a job to do here, a serious one indeed, because I think they have capitalized on that road for so many years. All right, now to the editorial for today. It's coming from the Authority newspaper, and it's all about the attempt to criminalize journalists and journalism practice. Okay, let's take one text from it. The quest by various administrations to gag media organizations in Nigeria with obnoxious laws has remained unrelenting, while the media cannot be completely absolved of going overboard at times. Past governments in Nigeria have used their privileged positions to forbid criticism and even involve absolutism under extreme conditions. Can you dissect?
Well, an editorial is an opinion of the newspaper, and the perspective that the editorial has taken is that it is seeing the move to amend the Nigerian Press Council Act as a move by government to gag the press. It's far from it. It is purely the initiative of the Senate to update a law that is existing in Nigeria. And like it happened at the public hearing yesterday, the Nigerian Press Organization had called for the repeal and put in the permanent cooler the law. And the spokesman for the Senate, who incidentally stood in for the Senate president yesterday, clearly indicated that if we fail not to repeal the law, the status quo ante shall remain. And what he advised specifically is that it's better to look at the law and amend it for the industry rather than throw the baby away with the bathwater, because he says specifically that the Senate will consider its role and its constitutional role to do as deemed necessary by the law. But the question to ask is, if, for instance, journalism says you cannot publish information knowing truly well that it is false and you publish it, should it then there be a peer review session as is proposed in the Nigerian Press Council to, for instance, caution such a journalist or reprimand him or suspend him or, if possible, strike his name out of the register of journalists? This is what the intention ought to be. However, because a section is provided for, I think section 30 or 31, that says there should be penalty and imprisonment, the danger signal for every journalist does not want his freedom touched by anything that appears from government. And that is why there is this alarm about gag. But if you expunge all those things, journalism needs regulation. If journalists must hold those in governance accountable, journalism must be held accountable to its own code of ethics.
All right, Bayo, thanks a lot. Of course, these are matters that will be further explicated, in due course.
Yes.
we'd like to thank you for being around today. We had a fairly extended newspaper review session. All right, so let's take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with the Apapa traffic gridlock and how to tame it for all times.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Your favorite Maggi star now wears a new look. Its great taste and quality still remain the same. With Maggi, every woman is a star.
Helen! Your kitchen gets 10 out of 10. Thank you. This also gets a 10. Should we see the toilet now? Sure. This gets just 1.
It is clean.
But not perfect 10.
Better than my detergent and bleach? Impossible.
Challenge? Try the new Apic 10X.
Compared to bleach and detergent, Apic sticker formulation removes yellow stains times better, giving you a sparkling clean toilet.
Wow.
Now you also take that?
Perfect 10X challenge.
Also available in 200 ml pack. Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three put
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah? I was...
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
We thank you indeed for staying with us up to this moment, and good morning, Nigeria. And now let's start our conversation this morning on taming of Apapa traffic gridlock. And of course, with this background report put together by Mitaire Iben.
The Apapa-Oshodi Expressway and other major routes around the Apapa port in Lagos have been a traffic nightmare for some time now. The perennial gridlock is occasioned by heavy-duty trucks, especially tankers, which queue on daily basis at the ever-busy Apapa port in Lagos, the country's commercial hub. Owing to the traffic chaos, living or working in Apapa has been unbearable lately, not to mention the huge loss of man-hours and drawback on economic activities which have been paralyzed in the area. The situation is not helped by a number of roads that are in a state of disrepair around the Apapa axis. Several solutions have been proffered in the past by maritime stakeholders at various fora towards addressing the Apapa gridlock, but none seemed to have worked yet or successfully implemented. One of such hanging solutions is the automation of operations of the Apapa port and others nationwide as a step towards decongesting the ports and their vicinities. Apparently appalled by the persistent gridlock, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, made an unscheduled stopover in Apapa for an on-the-spot assessment of the chaos last Friday, following which he gave a 72-hour ultimatum to a joint military task force to evacuate the gridlock and restore normalcy in the area. Although this is not the first presidential attempt to address the situation, but with the latest directive by the Vice President, is there a solution in sight to the Apapa gridlock? What interim and long-term measures as well as international best practices are required towards restoring sanity to the Apapa vicinity and other ports nationwide? These will form part of the discussion on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Etari, for that background report. Now, joining us to discuss this issue in further detail, would like to welcome again to Good Morning Nigeria, Mane Ochuboju. He's a legal practitioner and a transport consultant. We had him recently, of course, when we were discussing the menace of petrol tanker drivers countrywide. Mane Ochuboju, pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
And then from our Lagos Network studios, another guest who was with us recently when we're discussing the transport situation also in the country, most especially in Lagos. He's back with us now. Dr. Taiwo Olufemi Salam is Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation in Lagos. There are three guests that you have there,
Yes.
by the way. So here's a gentleman in a red tie, in a dark suit. Kira, there are two other guests.
Yes,
there.
now, Aloga Ignatius Obugo, Executive Director, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, NATO, and Interim President, West African Road Transport Union, joining us also from our Lagos studio. And then Tony Iju Nwabunike, National President, Association of Nigerian Customs Licensed Agents, Lagos. Kinsley, we have more of our guests in Lagos where the action really is.
That's right.
And I know you've lived in Lagos and understand the environment much more than I do. So please, let's get started.
You're a chief from Enugu.
Get
so
started.
there's no gridlock in Enugu. All right, thanks a lot, gentlemen. Pleasure to have you with us again. Now, let's begin by just understanding what's been happening around the Apapa Oshodi Expressway, and of course, the adjoining roads. You have spillover effect, sometimes getting to Western Avenue and all of that. With Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Transportation in Lagos, what accounts for the traffic nightmare in and around Apapa?
Yes. Good morning, viewers. I think I should first of all clear an issue there. It is not that the federal government gave that 72 hours like that. His Excellency called our attention to a text message he called that for the past 2 days, Lagosians are unable to access their home. Hence, he also asked us to move in immediately and make sure that we relieve of this pain of the unnecessary and avoidable congestion on Lagos Road, not really caused by the state government. So we quickly contacted the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State, who fixed a meeting for that Wednesday around 3 o'clock. After we met, we realized that for us to be able to carry out this task, we need the buy-in of the union too. And another meeting was held on Thursday, whereby a statement was issued that a task force has been formed with the union, and we are moving in that all these tankers must leave the road. And what we have done is to put all those tankers on the express road and make available the service lane for Lagosians and Nigerians in general to be able to have access to their road.
And that we did on Friday. The vice president came in to Lagos and also flew a naval helicopter, and what he saw was devastating, and immediately supported that task force and said we must move within 72 hours and allow free passage for people to be able to go to their houses. So what are the causes of this? The causes of this is that excuse me, the causes of this is that there were an issue at the port, and again, the shipping company, they are now having holding bay. This has affected the tank farms, the tankers they don't have access to the tank farm because the trailers, containers, and others have blocked the road. So it is not easy for them to have access to tank farm. So the whole of the axis were jam-packed. That's Oshodi Apapa Express Road and the Ikorodu Western Avenue up to Apapa, and the whole Lagos was locked down due to this unnecessary issue.
Well, Kieran, just a minute. Stay with you, Dr. Salam. Thanks a lot. Now, for purposes of explanation, the Apapa Oshodi Yanoworo Expressway is 10 lanes. That's to say 5 lanes on either side, 3 lanes, and then 2 lanes, service lanes. When did it become a nightmare that virtually, the service lanes were taken up, and indeed part of both the slow and fast lanes were equally taken up on the expressway?
Because there was no activities going on at port, and then the maritime workers also, they were also on strike. So all trucks were just coming in, and nobody was able to access the port to be able to have, to be able to take in, to drop the containers or either to load out of the port. So as they are coming in, they are forming on the expressway. Majority of them also started moving into the service lane because all of them want to get to the port on time. That is why the whole 5 lanes were jam-packed. That is inward Tinkan Island. And then you also couple with the bad roads between the Total Petrol Station and the Baga Yard. So everything just became standstill.
Thank you very much, Permanent Secretary. We will return to you for further clarifications on some of the oppositions with respect to this topic now. Let's still remain in Lagos and talk to Aloga Ignatius Obodo, who is Executive Secretary, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners. Now, the issue of traffic gridlock along Apapa has become so perennial that it has even metamorphosed into a conundrum of sort. And with the question put to the Permanent Secretary by Kingsley, it does seem that your men are particularly involved in this because it concerns huge trucks carrying inflammable substances. What's your take on why this has remained the way it is today?
Morning, Nigerians, once again. It has remained the way it is because some basic laws and procedures have not been followed. Like I kept saying that, look, for these tank farms to operate, they need truck holding bay. The other time, you remember I said we have close to 63 tank farms in Apapa. And of these 63 tank farms, not more than half of them have holding bays. And each of these tank farms has a capacity to load between 100 and 150 trucks a day. So if 50% of them are loading petroleum product, you will expect if you multiply the number of trucks by the number of tank farms, you will imagine the number of trucks you have on our way. Then secondly, the shipping companies have become laws unto themselves. They are supposed to have truck holding bays. These containers are not meant to get into the port directly. They are meant to be stacked in an area. And then after stacking them in an area, you move them at night to the ports. Then going beyond that again, the roads are bad. You see, it is not the interest of any trucker to remain on the road because his income is a function of his turnaround. we quite sympathize with the terrible experiences the drivers are going through. Then again, some of these terminal operators do not have sufficient cargo handling equipment. For a number of containers, you need specific number of cargo handling equipment. These things are there, and they are compounding the problems. You see, tank farms sometimes have caused some enormous problems, because if a tank farm, for example, has a capacity to load maybe 300 trucks, and it goes ahead and collect money for maybe 500 trucks, and then if the 300 trucks load, the 200 trucks, where do you expect them to go? It still boils down on the issue of regulation. Again, there's a DPR law that says any tank farm, before you license a tank farm, it must have a truck holding bay. How many of these tank farms have truck holding bay, and how are they licensed? And as I speak to you, some other tank farms are coming up in Ijegu. So government must be proactive. Lagos State must be proactive to see how they can address the issue of these tank farms coming up. So there are lots of problems in the industry. And most of the containers that were moved from the road were taken to empty bonded terminal. And those empty bonded terminals were used as container holding bays. So, and it boils down to the issue, to the point we've been raising, that shipping companies need holding bays so that they can stack containers and move these containers at night. And sometimes there are also problems. These containers are getting into the port. All of a sudden, you hear systems shut down. Their system have shut down. And what does that mean? That means you cannot go access the port, and no trucks can come out. Invariably, these trucks that are being tied down with containers will also lead to congestion in the port, because these same trucks that are these the same trucks that are tied down that will also move containers from the port. So it all boils down on issue of regulation. There is need for proper regulation. There is need for critical synergy among the stakeholders.
Mr. Aloga Obogo, thank you very much. Again, we'll return to you, but still with the three guests in Lagos. This time, we want to bring in Tony Nwabunike, National President, Association of Licensed Customs Clearing Agents. Give us a sense of what the experience of your members has been over the years, particularly since the traffic gridlock became a nightmare in and around the Apapa area.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. My name is Tony Nwabunike. Once more, I just want to be very sincere in this case. Nigerians are experiencing the worst position in trafficking in Lagos, most importantly, very close to Nigerian ports authorities. But I must thank the federal government of Nigeria through the Vice President of Nigeria, Osibanjo, who has been intervening severally in our problems in the ports. First of all, he actually mentioned ease of doing business. He came back again to look at this critical situation of how to get access to Nigerian ports. The problem we are having has been enormous, not just today. It has been a long-time thing. We need to have a long-time solution to these problems. My members are actually suffering. We are in the hands of the truck owners, truck drivers, and even the terminal operators and the shipping companies. The shipping companies have taken the laws into their hands. They don't have holding bay. They don't have anywhere to offload their empty containers. They don't even want to be in line with what government wants according to the import guidelines and procedures in the port. The problem we're having is that nobody respects the government policies in the ports. From all the government agencies to the transport organizations. Last time, precisely 7th June this year, we called them to a meeting in our secretariat, I mean the NATOs and other truck owners. We wanted to know exactly how to get this problem sorted out. And the issue came to us, and we discussed extensively very well. We told them that they need to have an empty container holding bay. They now told us they don't have it. So what we did was to call all our members who are having bonded terminals, who have some little areas to stack the empty containers. And we had an agreement with these bonded terminals. They agreed with us. We sent the letter to the Nigerian Ports Authority. The MDD was very magnanimous to tell them that they should use this holding bay. The problem we're having is that most of the truck drivers refuse to understand that these roads are purely roads for everybody. They use all these roads according to what they want to do with it. Even when the task force was formed, then calling up the containers from the holding bays or wherever they are to go and discharge the port is another problem. They always complain, the truck drivers are always complaining that the task forces are asking them for bribes, asking them for money before they go into the terminals. So most times, if they want to offload the containers, they will pay from 50 to 70,000 to offload it. Otherwise, you'll be on that line till like Kingdom Come. And another thing is very clear, that even the transporters are very many associations. So they don't want to speak with one voice. They refuse to understand that federal government has given orders, and I want enforcement in this order. The most important thing is one thing is clear. Law can be made, but enforcement must be implemented to the letter, not just the transportation. The roads are extremely bad, yes. The road has been bad all the time through, but the most important thing is the discipline amongst us. We don't have it. Most people that are working in the ports believe that it's all commerce affairs. It's all business as usual. No principles of order, nothing to be respected about. And I want federal government to put a serious enforcement on this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Kingsley, he has raised very, very pertinent issues concerning this, and that makes the entire thing even more complex than I've even believed in the past, considering the indisciplined aspect of it, the unpreparedness, the unplanned nature of the entire area. Now, talking about laws and regulations and enforcing them, let's return to Abuja and speak to our friend here, Ochuboju, who is a legal practitioner. Now, how do you piece this together? How do you juxtapose this with respect to what the law says or what regulations should be?
Kirian, the gentlemen in Lagos, particularly Aloga and Tony, they address the microeconomic management of road infrastructure in Lagos very well. Issues of regulation, they mentioned it, and issues of laws, they mentioned it. We have mentioned this issue even in our previous conversation on this topic. It simply comes down to enforcement to a large extent. But then, why it has become so chaotic in Lagos particularly, it's not just about enforcement now because it's so overwhelming. It's now a national catastrophe in Lagos. Not just for those in Lagos, but also for us who depend on Lagos. Why do we depend on Lagos? 80% of our shipment in Nigeria comes through Lagos. And that comes down, it addresses the macroeconomic issue. Is that sustainable? Why should 80% of our shipment come through only Lagos port alone? What about Port Harcourt port? What about Warri port? What about Calabar port? And can't we have other ports? In Bayelsa, in Akwa Ibom, in Ondo? Ondo is on the seaside. Why can't we have other ports? It also addresses the issue of the economic planning in Nigeria. What does the Constitution say? It's even a legal principles of law that we should have a planned and balanced development. Is this planned and is this balanced? That 80% of our shipments should come through Lagos alone? That's one. Why should also 80% of our haulage be by road? What's wrong with the waterways? What's wrong with the barges? What's wrong with the aviation? Oh yes, aviation. We shouldn't forget aviation.
Yeah, we're doing cargo.
Yes, and critically, what is wrong with Nigerian railway? I know we mentioned here last time, and Kirian was protecting me when I mentioned that there are issues regarding Nigerian Airways that should be addressed. We should put a spotlight on it. Today, we are discussing the gridlock in Lagos dealing with haulage. A vicarious liability or responsibility lies on Nigerian Railway. How much cargo is Nigerian Railway carrying? Are there no rail lines from those ports? Apapa Port has rail lines. Port Harcourt, the old Port Harcourt port has rail lines. But there are no rail lines in Tinkan Island, in Warri Port, in Calabar Port. And these are supposedly modern ports. Even the new Port Harcourt port has no rail line. They are developing a port in Lekki today, and there's no rail line. These are structural deficiencies that should be addressed. It's poor planning, it's bad planning, it's backward. These are issues, again, that comes down to the functionality of the Nigerian Railway. How is it carrying goods from Apapa? It's supposed to be helping the evacuation. Our friends in Lagos rightly mentioned the regulatory issues and the implementation issues, dealing with road safety, dealing with the synergy between the other stakeholders. Again, nobody mentioned railway there in Lagos. Even our friend, Taiwo Salam, the PEMSEC of Lagos State, he didn't mention railway. It is this neglect of the rail infrastructure that is also compounding the problem in Lagos. If we can rouse the railway infrastructure to wake up from their coma, wake them up. They are almost dead. If we can wake them up, half of this problem will be solved. We are talking of 100 trucks, 200 trucks, 500 trucks per tank farm. That is also a structural problem. Why should 80% of our tank farms be in Lagos alone? Why can't tank farms be in other parts of Nigeria? What is wrong with having tank farms in other parts of Nigeria? In Calabar, for example, in Akwa Ibom, for example, in Delta State, in Warri, for example. Why should 80% be concentrated in Lagos alone? These are issues of bad balanced planning that we should consider and continue to reflect about. There are other macroeconomic issues. I'm sure as the conversation continues, we'll address them.
Mane, thank you very much for the perspectives that you have introduced. But just to indicate that a couple of days ago, the Minister of Transportation, that's Chibuike Rotimi Amechi, was in the Lagos area. In fact, was in the Apapa area. And he did indicate that the old railway station at Apapa will be pulled down for expansion purposes, and then because the rail line is supposed to be reconstructed from Apapa, to join for the evacuation of goods from the ports, as well as, of course, for the transportation of goods to the ports. The rail lines collapsed many years ago. You can see where the tracks are, level crossings. A lot of them, of course, have been seated up, and virtually the lines have disappeared. But let's return to Lagos and then deal with one micro aspect of traffic management in and around the Apapa Oshodi corridor. And my question is going to the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam, traffic doesn't get into a gridlock situation automatically. It's a gradual buildup. And oftentimes people are wondering how the traffic gets to build up, and then the traffic authorities appear to do virtually nothing until it becomes a national catastrophe, as Mane has said here. Where is LASMA? Where is the collaboration between LASMA, for instance, and the Federal Road Safety Authority? As the traffic was building up, could they have stemmed it? And now that some remedial work is being done, clearing the obstruction, could there be a relapse?
Thank you very much. What we have done in Lagos now is a temporary solution, but there is a long-lasting solution to it. But Lagos state government cannot go into such plan without the collaboration of federal government. And that we have been able to have a stakeholders family discussion yesterday with many solutions at site now. Now, how do the traffic get to that extent? We are not the port operators, neither are we the National Shippers Council licensing the shipping company that are bringing their traffic there. That is a special traffic. It's not a regular traffic that we are talking of. Regular traffic, there's a synergy between LASMA and Federal Road Safety Corps, and that is going on there. Now, neither are we, Lagos State Government, neither are we the DPR that is licensing all these tank farms. And the issue just remains that for you to be able to handle such thing, You need the synergy, you need the concurrence, you need the collaboration of this. If we have not been able to get the union at our side as Lagos State government, do you think we'll have achieved what we have done? It's a special traffic, and they have they have destination. And okay, should we now say this traffic should not enter Lagos State? Do you know the chaos and the economic problem that the whole Nigeria will have suffered? Just as the last man has said, the issue as pertaining to railway, that one, when I came to Abuja, I told you the situation we are finding ourselves is a conspiracy model. People are conspiring. You see, they've taken Nigeria for granted. What they cannot do in their own country. How come a shipping company that is coming to Nigeria to do business, that is part of its regulation, that it must have a holding bay, refuse to have a holding bay? Have you forgotten that the past government, they are the one that concessioned out the port? The port used to take care of all this thing before. For us now to start going into Lily Pond, going into Fano, going into Magfo, going into Sifat, going into all these things, opening them up, pushing all this truck there at the mid hours of the day. Since Friday, we've not been sleeping, trying to make it available for people. And it involves this last man you're talking about. It involves the police. It involves FRSC. It involves other stakeholders to be able to get this thing up. You need to come and see what we are going through. With them, with dagger, with the knife, with all these and shams. They are not the people they are not the type of traffic in Lagos that we control. Now, the issue now, as we are on, is that Lagos State government, what business have we in the tank farm? What business are we in port operation? What business are we with the shipping company? But if your neighbor if you want to eat and your neighbor is hungry, you better cook his own food with your own food. And what we have done now is His Excellency has given us the directive that we should quickly go ahead and complete Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu truck terminal. This thing Lagos State has looked at it since 2005, and the then governor of the state has done what? He has prepared this truck terminal. But these people will not go there. And where we want to say, okay, no, if you don't go there, we started arresting them, we started doing this thing. What is next thing? They say they want to go on strike. And who bears the consequences? Nigerians. So we are receiving them for a long time. The issue of railway can move container from Apapa wharf quay now to their own compound. And from their own compound, that's a pedometer, they can then take them up north. The Lagos-Ibadan rail that is coming up now is also going to carry goods and passengers. So that's one of the standard gauge, 4-inch standard gauge that is coming up. They are just reawakening railway. It is this government that is now reawakening railway. They've killed railway for a long time. It's not a matter of this discussion. So railways have been doing that. I knew when we were young, we would just stand there, the railway will be going and we'll be counting. When we count up to 50, we keep quiet as a young children. But this time around, again, the issue of Lekki, the one that Lagos State government is building, I think the last speaker should know that everything that's been put in place, including standard road, railway line, railway standard gauge, everything, so that all we're doing at Lekki Port is only operational. The administrative side of it is going to the dry port. So if you have any goods that is coming in to Lekki Port, you don't have access to Lekki Port. You go to the dry port and go and clear your goods and go out of Lagos. That's our plan for that one. So it is an opportunity here to thank all those people that has assisted us, including those the tank farms that we opened into and the bonded terminals that we opened into, that this is a national call. And we really appreciated them. The state government appreciated all they have done for the state and Nigeria in general. I also thank the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State for him to have taken the bull by the horn, and because it's an issue that if we don't do it, it will have been worse as this. The whole Lagos will have been locked. And we are even ready to go to Abuja to explain why this was done. And we thank the Vice President and the Minister of Transport too that quickly intervened
They came around, they went around, they saw this by themselves, and they said, no, this is enough of it. So now in Lagos State, we have now all the tank farms in Lagos State now. We have suspended every activities as regards the traffic. We will now be going into them one after the other, and we are using the opportunity. We want to see their traffic impact. If you don't have a minimum of 50 loading bay as stipulated in the regulation of the DPR, please shut down your tank farm before we reach there. If not so, we'll come and shut it down for you. And we will shut it down, you will not operate until you provide that. And to the shipping company, we thank the MD of Nigerian Port Authority, Aji Adiza. She was done wonderfully well yesterday. I always criticize PMPA. But by the time we were able to have a family meeting yesterday, she has already taken some bold step that I think, God bless you. So once we are synergizing, I am telling you the long solution is at stake, and we are going for it. And it has also been extended for another 30 days. Within these 30 days, we will resolve the whole thing. We got the machine order from Mr. Excellency, Mr. Akinwumi Ambode, and we're using the opportunity to let the negotiators know that their pain is our pain, and His Excellency is totally behind them, and we will resolve this issue now. It wasn't a Lagos State issue, but again, as I've said, if your neighbor is hungry, you better cook his own food with yours. If not so, you two, both of you will end up not feeding well. So thank you very much.
That's a very interesting one. You have opened up many perspectives to this conversation, and that gives us an impression, Kingsley, that it's a more complex issue. The shipping companies are involved. The transportation associations are involved. The issue of indiscipline is also involved. And that's why I want to put the question now to Ignatius Obogo. This issue of having multiple transport-related associations that do not speak with one voice, how does this compound the menace of a traffic gridlock in the environment in question?
Thanks, Kiro. You see, the issue of multiple transport unions and associations is it's on its own a problem. You see, in Nigeria, there is freedom of association. But again, like I keep saying, transportation does not start and ends in Apapa port. Transportation has a national outlook. We're in a situation where you have an association that hardly can you trace its office. Who are his members? What are his national spread? I think what the regulatory agencies need to start doing is to begin to regulate the transport unions and associations first. If you say you're a transport union and association, you're a leader, who are your followers? What is your national outspread? What are your members? Do you have an office in Kano? If your member is in Kano and he runs into a problem in Kano, will you be able to say, go to so-so-so office in Kano and you get respite? Again, it may interest you to know that the meeting with the SGF after the Otodola tank explosion, I'm happy the PAMSEC was in that meeting. The issue came up, and there was a marching order. It's part of the resolution reads that all single truck owners should go and register with NATO. NATO, Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, is the umbrella organization of all commercial vehicle owners. We have branches in 36 states in the Federation, and we have presence in the 6 geopolitical zones. And NATO has a high level of recognition from the government. That is why NATO represents the interests of transporters at Petroleum Product Price Regulatory Agency. The agency charged with the responsibility of regulating freight rate. NATO is also representing the interests of transporters at Federal Road Maintenance Agency. NATO is also representing the interest. NATO did represent the interests of transporters when Shopee was on course. NATO represents the interests of transporters at NASIMA. NATO represents the interests of transporters at NECA in our capacity as employers of labor. And as I speak to you here, I'm also the interim president of West African Road Transport Union. The national president of NATO is the president of African Roads and Logistics Union. So this is what it takes. to have an association. And again, all the tankers, most of the tankers you see carrying petroleum products in this country belong to NATO members. 70% of the trucks also belong to NATO. And that is why we have a condition of service with Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union of Nigeria. I think what the corporate affairs needs to start doing is to begin not just to register people. You come, you say you want to register, you register. There's need for the regulatory agencies, NPA, Shippers Council, to begin to regulate these transport unions and associations. First and foremost, it is important. You cannot allow a body that is amorphous, that has no that has no office, no structure. One man, you say you are the chairman, you pilot, you are the treasurer. It is not about what you are, but it's not about what you, it's what you do. So I tend to agree with you that this issue has to be regulated. It has to be looked into. The idea of people coming to just sit down and call themselves transport union and association does not hold weight, and it's not proper. So I think there's need for regulation. And secondly, for us to be able to address the issue of traffic in Apapa, we must think of decentralizing loading. There has to be decentralization. Let's decentralize. 80% of the petroleum product loaded in this country is loaded from Apapa. And 80% of the cargo coming to this country is also generated from Apapa. The cargo throughput is increasing, and the infrastructures are also expanding to accommodate the increase in cargo throughput. If the dredging in Niger, you could have taken some tank farms here, Calabar, Port Harcourt, One. These are all things you can put in place to reduce the pressure on loadings in Lagos. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ogbogo, thank you very much. And gentlemen, thanks a lot. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we shall read out the tweets that have come in from some of our contributors and then return to our guests to continue aspects of the conversation.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. No be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Oh boy, calm down now. Oga Kasali electrician, who will they look for with this? Oh. Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer, because change begins with me.
Oh boy, letting him talk makes sense. Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from off.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. And I say good morning, Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's quickly go through some of the tweets that we have and then return to our guests. Festus Akimboyewa. The gridlock in Apapa has been choking Nigeria's trade and disrupting free flow of people and goods for many years. But if government stops the trucks, they also stop the economy. Government should invest in infrastructure, in rails, and then space for the trucks. Government must also protect our pipelines.
Now, Nneka Chibundo Oga says there are about 4 or more petroleum depots in the country that should be fixed up for petroleum products to be distributed, and those trucks can get the products from them.
Mike Anyakwa tweets, now the traffic gridlock in Apapa is a typical case of the absence of planning in our superstructure. We should have envisaged increase in population and vehicles over time and factor them into our budgets for massive road construction, new bridges and flyovers. And the way forward now is more road and rail.
Now, Dele Jackson Solomon, while our neighboring ports are booming, our ports have been deserted because of the failed access routes to the ports, the gateway to the nation's economy. To decongest the routes, the railway should be developed, while pipeline distribution of petroleum products should be considered. Just as you were saying, that many are preferring to bring in their goods through neighboring countries' ports as against ours.
Our ports, that's right. Jack Solomon again has another tweet, Kirian. It says, fixing Apapa port arterials would not only reduce the knock-on effect on business and spiraling costs of operations and demurrage. Now, it will help check the activities of criminals who use every opportunity to attack, assault, and rob innocent Nigerians.
All right, now, Sani Michael Mokaji, the traffic gridlock in Apapa is man-made, not a natural disaster. Why did we allow it to happen? Where is road safety and her sister paramilitary agencies? Why do we always wait for the avoidable to happen before we think of prevention? It's so sad we do things this way.
Victor Ohio Swama tweets, now the problem of traffic gridlock in Apapa seems insurmountable. It's been there for years. That all previous solutions adopted failed. The solution is to decongest the activities in the port and make other ports, such as Warri, Calabar, functional, and also use rail instead of the trunk roads for goods.
All right, now, Cecilia Okoroma, does it mean if a bigger authority does not give smaller authority orders, things will not work? The gridlock in Apapa is scandalous.
This is from Daniel Abiodun. Until the trains are back and other ancillary infrastructure needed for the smooth running of a modern seaport put in place, the gridlock cannot be completely erased or eradicated. The transportation infrastructure around the ports is poor.
Yeah, Christo, we omitted Ibrahim Tudu. He says that there should be permanent task force on Apapa routes if no serious measures are taken. We are close to irredeemable tragedy with this Apapa gridlock.
Now, Vivian tweets, Kirian, Vivian tweets, to help the residents of Apapa and Lagos as well, the Nigerian police and various task forces should do their job and stop the bribery as alleged, and I think that this will help.
Cecilia Okoroma, this is an era of technology whereby trucks can be parked somewhere outside Apapa and moved the nick of time of loading.
All right, Kirian, let's quickly return to our guests before we get pressed for time. Back again to Lagos before we bring in Manny here with us in the Abuja studios. And my question is going to Tony Uwabunike, who is president of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Agents. One of the points that Manny raised has to do with the fact that the country does not appear to be taking advantage of other ports in the country. What has been the experience of your members? Are your members only in Lagos? Do they have businesses elsewhere in the country? Say in Port Harcourt, in Warri, Calabar. I know that the governor of Edo State is playing a solo game now, virtually, trying to build a new port at Gelegele. That is in Edo State, which was where the Portuguese used when they arrived in the 15th century. So where are your members, why are your members not found mostly elsewhere in the country as part of the means of decongesting the Apapa and Tinkan ports?
Thank you very much. Let me say by telling you that our members are all over the country. As I'm talking with you now, I have a chairman from Calabar, One Seaport, Area 1, Port Harcourt, Airport Seaport. In fact, as a matter of fact, I'm a director of Kaduna Dry Port. I'm a director of Kanu Inland Container Terminal. And recently, the Anambra State Governor is building a very massive inland container terminal. That is Port Bonded Terminal, Free Station. And I'm telling you, as I'm sitting down here today, every one of these areas are actually listening to us. The problem of port is that federal government must decentralize Lagos. Onitsha seaport needs dredging. Then all the inland container terminal depots should be encouraged. Aba has a depot that is supposed to be encouraged. Up to now, nothing has happened there. Then only Anambra State governor is very magnanimous of building a bonded terminal for the very first time in the whole southeast, in the whole Anambra, in Owerri and Enugu. Then if you talk about the whole southeast, there's no bonded terminal in the whole southeast except the one the governor is building. So we need to decentralize these Lagos. I'm sympathizing with the Lagos state government because I know that they have been working very hard when it comes to traffic situations in the Lagos state. But this Apapa has been very, very difficult to discuss with. Like I told you before, we must look into it properly. Government must put the roads very well. The federal government must sanitize the place by giving instructions and mandates to shipping companies and terminals. They are taking laws into their hands. And I tell you, most influential Nigerians are their directors and the managing directors and their chairmen of these companies I'm talking about. The concessionaires, equally, we must look into it. Who has been concessionized our ports? How old is the concession? Has it lasted? Has it been renewed? Federal government must to look into these things. And again, we are talking about transport owners. The transporters are not in line with what we're saying because their drivers are not trained. Most of their drivers are not taking laws. They are taking laws into their hands. They are not taking instruction from their bosses, and it has been a big problem. Another issue is that forming a task force, yes, is good. But the moment the task force comes into port, they begin to think about how to make the money and go home with it. The whole area needs to be reorganized and re-engineered. Then coming to talk about the railway station. Like I told you, I'm a director of Inland Container Terminal and the Kaduna Seaport, dry port. And I'm saying that it is very important that the rail stations must be put to order. Today, we are not having any TUs from the rail because of the problems of railway. The Minister of Transportation has been working very hard to see that railways are working. I really don't know what exactly is the problem. We need to look into it critically. And I'm telling you, as I'm talking to you, it's not easy to transport all the TEUs from Lagos to Kanu and Kaduna. It has been a big problem. Going to Onitsha, the roads are bad. You can't even take the consignments to that place. So you need to encourage bonded terminals and freight stations. Then coming to seaports, I'll tell you that even Calabar Seaport is underutilized. Lagos, Port Harcourt area, one seaport, is very deep, yet is very underutilized. Even the airport at Port Harcourt is not even functioning to full capacity. And I really do not know why this is happening. Maybe probably we need to look at the freight. The freight is another point we should look into. And federal governments must interact with us, those who are the critical stakeholders. They don't have to put laws into they put laws into us. They need to sit down with most stakeholders to begin to talk about laws and before it comes to become implemented. Because every law they bring out so muchly negates to the principles of what is on ground. Another problem we are having is for us too, who are not actually working and believing that this government will succeed. It must be a collective effort for all of us to make this thing work. So the situation on ground is that the implementation, enforcement, and the total reorganization of maritime sector is very important.
Thank you indeed, Nwabunike. You mentioned earlier that this is a perennial problem that requires a solution that can be sustainable for a long time. You also told us now that your men are in places you mentioned, even some of where you are director and what have you. But why has it been that 80% of your activities is in Lagos? with all those branches or headquarters that you have elsewhere, why have you concentrated in Lagos?
It's all about supply and demand issue. And I say this because I know what it takes to, the freight coming to Lagos is a little bit cheaper for the importers. Coming to Port Harcourt, I want even the shipping liners to begin to put the freight station, the freight according to, let them encourage the Easterners. Let them encourage the Easterners by reducing their freight. The freight is higher. When you look at the freight an Easterner is paying and the Western ports are paying, you will now begin to understand what I'm saying. Another thing is very clear. The supply and demand, Lagos is a very high level of a commercialized area. And people are actually believing that the 60% of their products should be sold in Lagos. But I actually believe that when you make Onitsha, Aba, and other areas in the southeast to become very functional, even by giving them bonded terminals, these areas will be reopened. Even trying to make sure that an Onitsha seaport has been well totally dredged, they will now be encouraged. They don't have any way to get their consignments to that place. The roads are not good. So the concentration is in Lagos. And Lagos is actually suffering it because I know the capacity and the number of containers that are coming into these ports, those ports. And it's important we begin to do these things as I said.
Right, Mr. Wambonuke, thank you very much. The nightmare that we are facing now is similar to what happened in the mid-70s during the administration of General Yakubu Gowon when he had a cement armada. Cement imports, clogged cement and flour, clogged the Apapa ports, and ultimately that became one of the incentives for the construction of Tin Camp. My question is going to Mane here with us in the Abuja studios. Listening to the guests from Lagos, in particular the last guest who just spoke, that's Mr. Tony Wambonike, we're hearing this to say, all right, it's cheaper for you to use the Lagos ports, but when you look at the long run, the knock-on effect of the cost, demurrage and delays and so on and so forth, are you ultimately a loser? And therefore, what should be the proper economic consideration by, say, the Nigerian Ports Authority, the Shippers Council, and others to encourage the use of other ports, say, on the eastern flank of the country?
Kingsley, that is a very, very good question. The issue which Tony addressed, saying that the use of Lagos is determined by demand and supply, goes to part of the poverty of planning and implementation in Nigeria. We have allowed this invisible force of supply and demand and the market fundamentalism since the days of Babangida's government, when we went into structural adjustment, to control and determine our economic fortunes and the well-being of our country. We threw away the issue of planning. I mentioned planning earlier. In fact, it's a constitutional requirement. I think section 16, subsection 2A or so, requires us to direct the policies of our country to ensure planned economy, planned and balanced economy. It's a constitutional requirement. The moment we threw that overboard from the days of Babangida, the economy, as you can see, have gone adrift. It's become rudderless. And we allow forces of demand and supply. Forces of demand and supply, what we see in Lagos today goes to dramatize the issue of market failure. When you allow forces of demand and supply to determine your logic of state policy. Why can't we truly, as you asked, use Calabar Port? Why can't we use Akwa Ibom Port? Why can't we develop other ports like it's been done in Edo? And why can't we develop the inland ports, like you said, Aba, Onitsha, and even all the way up to Lokoja and to Benue, by the way? Why not? Those issues of planning have been neglected, and this is the consequences that we are seeing today. And in the long run, it doesn't make economic logic. You are transporting goods to Kano, to Borno, to Makurdi, to Enugu, and you are depositing them in Lagos. It doesn't make sense. You spend 4, 5, 6, 7 days on the road. Even those who live in Lagos, they spend 7 hours going to work, to and fro, on a daily basis. There is a huge economic loss in time, even the stress on their body and the health, the wear and tear on their vehicle, and the environment. None of that make economic logic. That is even at the individual level. Let's talk of on the corporate level. On the corporate level, if you are taking goods to Nasarawa, you're taking goods to Taraba State, why do you use Lagos Port? Why can't you use Calabar Port? Calabar is on the southeast. It makes sense if you're going to the Middle Belt Zone, or you're going to the northeast section of Nigeria, or up the way to Maiduguri, you don't need to use the Lagos Port. And 80% of all what is used in all those parts of Nigeria use Lagos, which is utterly economic illogicality.
Kieran, I'm just wondering, just to the point. I mean, if you look at the development of the rail system under the colonial administration, you had the eastern flank, and then you had the western flank. Western flank, of course, from Lagos straight up to Kano, and eastern flank from Port Harcourt through the various ports, and then straight up to Maiduguri for evacuation of agricultural produce and so on and so forth.
You don't blame my brother there in Lagos, because the forces of demand and supply to them is a business strategy, and like he said, that importers want 80% of their products sold in Lagos because of the economic viability of Lagos. That's understandable on the micro level. But when it comes to macro level, then what Mani is saying becomes very, very relevant. All right, now let's talk to the permanent secretary there in Lagos. Now, are you thinking of any technological approach to this? Of course, if not for Lagos State to do that, maybe as a suggestion, because technology has taken over the world. The automation of Apapa area, the automation of the business, is it necessary? Can it work? Can it help to bring about a decongestion of the area if the practice there is automated?
Yes, for the practice to be automated, you must have a holding bay where you will put all these trucks. So it is from there now you can now have a call-up system where you can now be calling them to the port. And that's what the Lagos State and the MPA, we are now synergizing together to get the get the terminal trucks and other area to be able to get this injured. Yes, it can be possible. But for the last speaker, it's a triangular commercial issue. They go to Abuja to go and strike the contract. They come to Port Harcourt to come and leave the oil, and they come to Lagos to come and dispose and sell them off. It's a triangular angle. So for you to plan, you must also look at the commercial angle of it.
I want to ask him.
All right.
I already have
All
it.
right. All right. He has concluded. Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Salam. If you can hear me, my question is still to you in our Lagos Network studios. Earlier, when you were speaking, you did say that what has been done now in terms of the clearance of the obstruction by the tankers and other articulated trucks is a temporary measure. We understand that some of these articulated trucks and even tankers have relocated to Okota and Ajegunle. And these are residential locations. I mean, considering what the hazards could be, how sustainable is this, whether in the short term or in the medium term?
Thank you very much. The Lagos State government have reached out with the union yesterday after our family meeting. We are going to smoke all of them out there. We will smoke them out. We will take them out of Lagos. And anyone that we arrested will just prosecute that one straight off. We have told all the tanker owners and the truck owners to come and take their truck out of Lagos. If they don't have TDO, they should go out of Lagos. If they have the TDOs, they should go into the holding bay where they will now be called. Because as we are now moving, what we realized was that when we are taking the container away from them and asking them to get out of Lagos, that's when they are now going to the nooks and crannies of Ajegunle, Kirikiri, and another area. So again, we are trying to resolve a problem somewhere. They are trying to create it in another place. So we all resolve with the MPA, with the union now. For the extension of 30 days, we'll start picking them up. We'll smoke all of them out of Lagos.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, let's take
all right, we have some tweets here now, but had wanted Ignatius Obogo, to actually do what will likely be his final thoughts on this conversation. Aloga Ignatius Obodo, please come in here and try to address some of the issues raised by Salam.
Responsible association, we have told our members that if you don't have business to be in Lagos, don't come to Lagos. And if you come to Lagos, you are on your own. You see, there are exceptions, and in every, you have people who want to do things that are not in line with the major objectives of the association. We have told them, we must be part of this, solving the problems in Lagos. And that is why the PS himself can attest to the fact that we gave them the maximum cooperation. And we are all involved in this task force something, and we are educating our members, and we are prepared to support Lagos State government in bringing sanity. But going beyond that, he has also said that a truck that has a TDO should be able to access the port. And a truck that is going to carry petroleum products should be able to have a call-up later. If you have a TDO, logically, should you be on queue? That's where the problem is. If you have a TDO, you should access the port. But you will discover that 70% of the trucks on queue have TDOs, and yet they are not being able to access the port. One critical issue was raised in the course of our deliberation. NPA has about 4 gates. We discovered that only 1 or 2 of the gates is functional. That, again, is a problem on its own. So some of these operational hitches should be, tackled, and no matter how long you keep a queue, how long you ask this truck to be on one lane, if at the point of entry, that is at NPA gate, if there is no sanity, it disturbs the rate at which truck can access the port. So there are some of these operational problems that has to be looked into. But basically, the bottom line of the whole thing is that decentralizing Lagos, making the pipeline functional, making the ports, other ports in this country functional. And that's the only way you can reduce the pressure, and introducing intermodal system of transportation. This.
All right, Wogo, thank you very much. We just want to quickly run through the next set of tweets that we have, and then we'll call it a day on the conversation segment. Cecilia Okoroma has this tweet. The gridlock requires the Chinese to come and show us the wonders of technology. How limited space can pack thousands of vehicles.
I believe what she just said. The Victor Onomo, let's get our refineries back on track, build more refineries, develop or build more seaports and dry ports, and get the railways working while working to improve on other haulage facilities.
Sani Makalo Makoji. Now, we boast and brag that Lagos is not just a city, but a mega city in Africa. But is the gridlock, such as the one we are having in Apapa, also a feature of a mega city?
Now, Cecilia Okoroma, once again, the gridlock in Apapa clearly shows lawlessness, painlessness, or planlessness, backwardness, insensitivity, and lack of creativity.
And this one is from Godwin Johnson. The decentralization of Lagos ports by opening other ports in the country that will be the only way to reduce traffic in Lagos. Railways will compound the issue more because it is not the foundational problem. Decentralize the ports, period.
Now, Success Umo, Warri, Port Harcourt and Calabar ports are lying low with little or no activities. Federal government Ministry of Transport should do something urgent about it.
And this is from Emmanuel Abulime. Please tell them that Gelegele Seaport in Edo State is waiting to be tapped. All right, so those are the tweets that we can take. We'd like to appreciate your contributions, and then indeed our 4 guests, 3 of them joining us from our Lagos Network studios. First, from Lagos, we'd like to appreciate the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Transportation in Lagos. That's Dr. Taiwo Olufemi Salam. Doctor, you see him there in a dark suit and a red tie. And then, of course, in the middle is Mr. Tony Iju Nwabonike, National President Association of Nigerian Licensed Customs Clearing Agents. And then last but not the least is the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, Aloga Ignatius Ogbogo. Gentlemen from Lagos, we appreciate your contributions to our discussion this morning. And then right here with us in the Abuja studios, our appreciation also to Mane Ochuboju, legal practitioner and transport consultant. Always a delight having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that does it now for our discussion. Let's go very quickly to our complementary segments. And here is sports.
Chris Giwa has